are very honored today to have Colonel Andy Milburn here. He is a former commander of the Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force. He is also an author of the book When the Tempest Gathers. And, a retired colonel, infantry marine. So I don't want to just teeing it up for you, but if for everyone who who doesn't know you, hasn't read your book, could you just tell us a little bit about your time in the Marine Corps, how your journey started a little bit different than other Marines?
Little unusual. Well, first of all, thanks very much, fellas. It's great being here. Andrew, Nick, and Vic, and really appreciate the invitation. And so, yeah, without making this laborious long story, yes, indeed. It's slightly unusual start. I am, as you can probably tell from my accent, from the UK originally. I immigrated to this country via a rather an unusual conduit in that I came through Parris Island instead of Ellis Island, which is definitely an experience. Parris Island was my first introduction to the United States. That is not an exaggeration, and it was a very abrupt culture shock. Let me put it that way. But yeah, to take a step backwards. I brought up in the UK. Had plans to join the British Army, and they were curtailed abruptly when I broke my leg playing rugby at college. I was a crappy rugby player, unlike Woody. So I'd score points for saying that. And so was rejected by the British Army, ended up enlisting in the U.S. Marine Corps after law school. I should backtrack and say I had a U.S. passport. I was a dual national. In the UK, there was a Marine recruiter back in the 80s because a lot of U.S. high schools. I ran into him, and to cut a long story short, signed a contract. My parents were less than ecstatic. Remember, I was just in my final year of law school at the time, just about finishing off. I wrung him dry, though. I really did. Guaranteed PFC out of boot camp, guaranteed infantry. That's a
nice.
Yeah. I'm sure he's still sweating it. And I always had plans to go back and practice law in the UK. My plan originally was to go into the Marines for 4 years and then go back. I had a place at what we call the pupillage there. So they were going to keep it open for 5 years. So I figured out 4-year enlistment, work out well, I would return. 31 years later, obviously, it didn't quite work out that way. I just started to realize I was probably a better Marine than I would be a lawyer. That's a
nice.
very, very low bar.
Well, given your body of work, I think that you would have had to have been an exceptional attorney in order to meet what you've done in uniform. So thank you for sticking around, sir.
Well, yeah. Now, bear in mind, I wrote the book, so that's just one view of if someone
very
else
biased lens
yeah,
here.
maybe a little. But on that point, honestly, and I think you guys hopefully will agree with it. If you don't, please don't say so on this podcast. But in the book, this isn't kind of a chest-thumping SEAL memoir of there I was, and it is. I have intended to be absolutely honest, and I had help from friends too on this. The point was that in the Marine Corps, we have a very healthy cynicism about self-publication, right? You notice that. I think that's good. I think a downside of it is that we don't have a lot of writers. We may make fun of, for instance, the Army SF guys or SEALs who write more books. But I think there's a downside of the fact that we do not. And for some reason, this reluctance to put our thoughts or our careers, our experiences into writing has been relatively recent. It's the last 2 decades. Because you think about the flood of Vietnam. There's a lot of Marines wrote about their experience in Vietnam, Korea, Second World War.
Big West.
Yeah, but not the same from the last 2 decades. So anyway, my point being, so if you're going to raise your head above the parapet and write about yourself, hopefully it's not intended to be about myself, but it's a memoir after all, right? Mm-hmm. You have to be scrupulously honest, because otherwise, this is a personal feeling of distaste if you're not.
Absolutely. What I think to your point, sir, is that in sort of like we were talking before the interview started, is that regardless of what medium or genre you're writing in, especially for nonfiction, you have to be a character, and you have to be an accessible character. And so if your portrayal of your actions or your time, wherever it is overly exceptional, even if people believe you, they're not going to be able to relate to it.
Yeah, 100%. And there's another part to this too. So in the first couple of, we just talked about, we were talking before the podcast about writing is rewriting, right? Mm-hmm. So in order to write well, or to get to that point where not all Stephen King's writing 10,000 words a day after drinking a case of beer and doing cocaine, right? But in order to get that point, you've got to shelve that fear of sucking, and you just pour your thoughts down on paper, right? And then you go back and edit, etc. But anyway, my point is that at some point in that stage, I realized after I'd written the initial manuscript and I'd gone through it maybe once or twice, I started sharing it with friends, close friends, and their perspective coming back, I remember, gave me an insight that I had not had before, because I thought I had been scrupulously honest in portraying my mistakes, self-doubt. Some of the tough things about, for instance, being in command, even at platoon level. We always say command is lonely, but it is hellaciously lonely sometimes. Especially, it's all very well when things are running smoothly, but when things start going wrong, or you're losing people, or things, things can be almost so chaotic that you are, you're not sure whether you're up or down, but you are the guy that everyone's looking at to ensure that you're going in one direction. You're not sure if you are that guy sometimes. Anyone who says that they've never been in that position is probably just lying or
has no introspection.
But so my point is, I did want to get that out. I thought I had done it well, but I've also, frankly, had a lot of problems, dealing with the aftermath of combat, and then I had some personal tragedy, and that undoubtedly changed me. And so friends coming back and saying, unless you write about that, do you want this book just to be, something that appears in the Marine Corps Association, no offense, guys, but, Marine Corps Association bookstore, back shelf for a little while, or do you want it to something that people can really relate to, that regardless, like a Lance Corporal can pick up or and enjoy as much as maybe a policymaker or a senior officer, and if that's the case, then you got to be honest about your own struggles and whether or not you want to call it a story of resilience. I'm not sure it is a story of resilience, because every day is still a battle, right? For a lot of us. Yeah. But it is a story about, hey, just keeping your head above water and going day to day. And that's an important story. I didn't realize how much an important aspect of that story it was until after the book came out. And then a lot of people who commented on it personally to me told me that it was because it made them kind of feel better about their own experiences or their own reaction to their experiences, right? I am normal, right? But it's tough for us, especially as Marines, to write about that stuff, because I tell you what, we can talk all we want about it's okay to have mental issues, and I shouldn't even call it that, right? To have problems and mental health issues, yeah. So it's we feel empathy and all this, but the bottom line is we're Marines, and bottom line is we don't necessarily want a leader who's expressing that stuff, right?
No, that's
because
a good point.
We all know the way we talk. Though, hey, is this dude wacko or what?
Yeah.
So I was just. It wasn't that I was concerned about people not wanting to follow me after that. I mean, hell, if people, I'm always surprised people wanted to, or if they didn't have a choice, right? But it was definitely that kind of ethos that I was battling against, and so I did go back and I wrote about some very difficult things in there and my reaction to them. To include even before the personal tragedy, my reaction after coming back, for instance, from my second deployment, which I thought was particularly difficult, and not perhaps dealing with it very well, and probably drinking too much, and definitely drinking too much. So putting that in there is a little, I wouldn't say risky, but it's difficult.
It's vulnerable, but I think it adds, to use a $100 word, adds that verisimilitude to, like you said, this is a true memoir. It's not a there I was.
Yeah. It's the human condition, right?
Yeah.
You're a creative writer. What do they say about fiction? The purpose of fiction is to. It's not a quite. Yeah, but fill in the blank. But it's really to learn. You read fiction, right, to learn about the human condition.
Yeah, it is an opportunity for you to learn about, to explore the themes of real life in a setting that isn't so grounded.
That's right. Yeah, in reality. Yeah. So I'm not. This certainly wasn't fiction. But it's not. This isn't me coming out with a Lance Armstrong type admission on your podcast. But it's the same the same thing. You've got to make your experiences relatable. There's got to be an element of universality. Unless you are 100% honest about the feelings that you have, then you're not going to get there from here.
Absolutely. Well, sir,
you're not supposed to call me sir on this podcast.
Yeah,
I read the rules beforehand. You told me all the words I could not say, which were all swear words, right?
Yes.
But sir is another one.
4 swear words in the S word.
Add an S word.
Rule number 1, don't swear. Rule number 2, there is no rules.
Well, before we get into some of the specifics of your book, of your recent Gazette article, I did want to sort of unpack a little bit of your perspectives, because you come from, like we said, you have such not just an unconventional path, but I think from your upbringing, you bring almost an outsider's perspective, if you will, onto how the Marine Corps functions, how it operates. Like you said, it was a huge culture shock for you, not just being in America, but being at Parris Island, South Carolina. And not just being in Parris Island, South Carolina as an American, but as a Marine recruit. So there's all of these nuances that even most Americans don't really have an understanding or a lens to look at the world through. And so I feel like you have a very important perspective on the Marine Corps specifically because of all of these sort of crossroads that you walked over.
I think, that's very kind of you to say it's important. I think it's certainly different. And I think, one thing that the internet and globalization, all this other stuff has done has caused, to a certain extent, a convergence of cultures, right? So, and to include transatlantic cultures. So, for instance, I just gave a talk this morning to a group of British Army officers, and their terminology, their mindset, their background's very similar to a group of U.S. Marine officers, but 30-something years ago, that would not necessarily be the case. And UK was a very different culture from the US. Honestly, it still is. I mean, civilian cultures they are quite different. And one perspective of that is the fact that for me, going through a British private school in the UK, they're called public schools, but they're private. It's some weird, it's a weird paradox dating back to dating back to the 14th century when they were indeed public schools. But it doesn't matter. And then to a British university doing philosophy. So you can imagine in the 80s, it's a very, that's a very, it's a left-wing, liberal in every sense of the word environment. But also, on the positive side, an environment where creative thinking is encouraged, especially in something like philosophy, and then going on to do law, which is much more structured, but you're still having to shape thoughts. But the view then from in the UK, the U.S. military is regarded as, it was a very it was a very foreign organization in every sense of the word. And you know how it is. When you're outside an organization, outside a culture, you think of that cultural organization as being homogenous. You think everyone's the same within it. So there was a very kind of stereotypical view of U.S. Marines, which actually isn't that far off the mark, by the way. I realized 30 years later. And plus, I did philosophy, and how many? There's not that many Marine infantry officers or Marine officers who have done philosophy. It's not a natural crossover. Most philosophy students don't do philosophy with the prospect of joining the Marine Corps, strangely enough. But so to go from that environment, and then Parris Island, which is, I mean, all of us, even when we go back to Parris Island now, and I've got to say, I'm not, I don't want to get in trouble here, but I wonder sometimes whether it's time to change the way we do things at Parris Island. We can talk about that, as we transition to, we really, really need more and more creative, critical thinkers, and Parris Island certainly doesn't help you do that, right? But anyway, so you can imagine transitioning to that. But even as an officer in the U.S. military, despite the fact, in the Marine Corps, we like to think that we encourage eccentricity and we encourage intellectual curiosity. I would argue, no, we don't. Not enough. And certainly by comparison with my background in the UK, no, not at all.
Yeah.
So, I certainly, I'll give you examples. I mean, I came in probably with a very kind of... when we're talking about intervention overseas, we're talking about there was always part of me that was kind of looking at it through the Yankee imperialist lens too, right?
Sure,
and now suddenly I'm wearing that uniform and doing these things. So there was always an element where I had to justify things ethically to myself. I know that sounds strange, but it was a step I had to take. Whereas my fellow officers, being brought up in this country, having been inculcated from day one, hey, the military is awesome. They defend our freedom, this and that. It's second nature. There's no thought in it. It doesn't mean I'm ethically any better than them, or any more morally well-grounded. Probably less so in some cases, but nevertheless, it was just a very different perspective. Always, but I think actually Woody commented on this, or maybe it was Bing West. But the Marine Corps. Having said that the Marine Corps doesn't encourage eccentricity or intellectual curiosity, I'm going to backtrack a little bit and say the Marine Corps tolerates eccentricity more so than the other services. And it does so on one condition, that you get the job done, right?
Yeah,
you accomplish the mission. If you do that, then, it's okay if you're a little different. A little strange. And so I certainly, I drove up that seam and was very fortunate that I had a succession of guys I worked for who were very tolerant in that respect. Yeah.
No, that's really a fascinating perspective because, like you said, I think when we look at, especially we look at the joint force within the DoD, but then we look at multinational forces. We've been in that game, for a few decades or a couple decades now. There is this assumption that within the transatlantic organization, we're all sort of the same. Yeah. Maybe our accent's a little different.
I think things have converged. I think 2 decades of fighting the same wars have caused the convergence of the culture between the militaries. But until 9/11, the kind of the career track of the average British Army or Royal Marine officer was quite different as far as his experiences. So the Brits had a lot more operational experience in the 90s than we did. I mean, they were, for instance, they were in Bosnia in a semi, quasi combat capacity, not simply peacekeeping, and of course Northern Ireland, which which continued throughout. And then there were pop-up incidents such as Sierra Leone and things such as that. At the same time that through a succession of governments after Somalia, our own government was avoiding military intervention, and so you had quite a wide divergence. And then in 9/11, when we came together, or rather in Afghanistan, or actually in Iraq 2003, there was this kind of supercilious attitude from the Brits of, hey, Yanks, we've got this, we know counterinsurgency. But in fairness, U.S. Marine Corps showed itself to be an extraordinarily adaptive organization. It put in the most volatile area of Iraq. I don't think anyone challenges that. Anbar province.
Yeah.
And
Just told to fix these guys in place.
and in a very, I think, a way we can all, I am proud of. We learned some hard lessons. We made a lot of mistakes, and there's some milestone mistakes like Haditha and various other things. But the point is that individually, battalion by battalion, you had guys just trying to do the right thing, learning quickly in the face of great high danger, high casualties. And then paradoxically, and I don't want to get in trouble with the Brits, but they go to Basra, which is a relatively benign area, and they're struggling. So my point here is not to vilify the Brits because they're an extraordinarily professional organization. My point is simply that this sense of I need to learn is all important.
Yeah.
I need to adapt, and if you lose that, then everything goes south, and we're seeing that right now. As we start talking about transitioning to multi-domain operations, are we still going to do things the way we always did? Oh, hey, look, we got to conduct a breach. Let's put down a smoke screen, bring artillery up. All right, start suppressing, and bring the Miklik up.
Cue the script.
25, quarter of a century ago tactics, or have we learned that down at squad level now we need the ability to close the kill chain to include, understanding how to use ISR, tactical level ISR, understanding how to quickly use precision-guided weapons down at the squad level. No, we haven't got to that level yet. You know why? Because we are so caught up in ourselves about we're the combined arms service, this is how we do things, that we have not adjusted to the new term of combined arms. Did I get too much off track for you there?
No, this is perfect.
You went right on track, actually.
Hey, here's another thing, though, talking about outside looking in. Here's the strange thing about retirement. So I retired. The weird thing is I feel kind of like I've been out of the Marine Corps the last 10 years because from 2012, I went to MarSOC. I took the regiment and then the Siege of SODIF. And then after the Siege of SODIF, I went to Special Operations Command Central, where I was the Chief of Staff and the Deputy Commander. So my point is, I had this long period where I was kind of out of mainstream Marine Corps. In fact, a four-star general happens to be former commandant. He's a terrific human being, great officer, but said to me at one point, Andy, when are you coming back to the Marine Corps? Not that he wanted me back to the Marine Corps, but he was just curious, and it made me think, shit, I haven't been. But so in those positions, I started to again feel even more of an outsider. Now I'm in the soft community, looking at the Marine Corps, but curious, but more and more. And this isn't, you guys didn't give me the script to read, but the strongest undercurrent I felt, honestly, was pride, and just the average Marine NCO, staff NCO, average Marine officer, just handled himself so well, I thought. And I'm not trying comparison with other services. I'm just saying that every time I came into contact with this service, I was very proud. At the same time, I've got to tell you, there were aspects of the Marine Corps that I started to notice that were, I felt, holding us back. And now I'm viewing it from outside. We can be very pig-headed about some things. We can be notoriously chest-beating about some things. And it prevents us adapting. We've got to be wary of that.
Yeah.
Last thing I was saying, and I'll shut up.
Please don't, because we got a lot
so
more to go.
then I retire fully, right? And I get brought on. This is an awesome gig. I get brought on to go out to 29 Palms and be a small group facilitator for the ground commanders course, and also to be a kind of a mentor. We call it subject matter experts, although I hesitate to call myself an expert about anything, for the MACTAF warfighting exercise series. So the curious thing about that, now I'm being pulled back into the womb, right? 29 Palms of all places, you're right through the gate, and you are definitely back in Mother Marine Corps. And I find myself, lying in bed early in the morning and hearing like squads of Marines running by chanting, thinking, who are these strange people? It's
Yes,
just
right.
such a everyone's so. But the positive aspect of that is, there's something comforting too. Even the short hair, the uniforms, the scrupulous politeness. I don't know. You don't notice that until you've been a civilian for a while, and then you're among Marines again. Yeah, they're forced to be polite, but it's part of our.
Yeah.
You can call it superficial, but it's all part of our culture. And again, the strongest undercurrent, I do feel is pride. Very proud to be part of it, and I didn't always realize how much I had to be proud of while I was there, because when you look around and everyone you see and talk to are Marines who become institutionalized, and you don't have that frame of reference until you leave the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. When I retired, I went back to school. I was in a very liberal academic setting, and it sort of just lost sight of that. And then coming back here again, I was like, oh yeah, I love this. I forgot how much I love this.
It's comforting.
Yeah, it's very comforting. And I think that a lot of the things that you've talked about already, culture, intellectual curiosity, I think drives towards what we're talking about here with our amphibiosity piece, and that is, when does uniformity, which is absolutely critical to an organization, start to become conformity, which is then the beginning of the downfall of the organization, is when you've got this myopic sort of mindset and everyone is conforming to, vice a uniformity that brings us all together and unifies us by culture, but then we still facilitate and encourage this level of intellectual curiosity. And I guess to your point, I think that it's a great bumper sticker to say that we encourage initiative, intellectual curiosity, and it works in an academic setting. But for you being out of 29 Palms, do you see that sort of sterile environment where it's encouraged translate over into actual field exercises? And are we training, like you said, even down to the squad level, for our Marines and our leaders to be intellectually curious and to ask questions about what is going on?
Okay, no, I would say not enough. And here's why I'm saying that, all right? And this is, and bear in mind, I don't, it's very difficult for me to, honestly, it's very difficult of me to criticize the Marine Corps, because it's kind of biting the hand that fed you. I mean, we've spent most of our adult lives in the organization, so I'm not one of these guys who rolls out and just derives pleasure out of then throwing rocks. But on the other hand, if you love an organization, you want to make it better, and part of this, I'm trying to trace root of the problem. The answer to your question is no. No, we do not. We do not encourage. I'm not sure it's so much initiative as intellectual curiosity and adaptation. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than initiative.
Adaptation is a good word. Yeah.
I think our guys, all our guys, have a tremendous amount of initiative, but it's within certain parameters. Okay. And you might say, well, of course, because we're in the military. But here's where I'm heading on this. When you trace, okay, what is wrong now? Why are we so slow now to adapt to the environment that we think we're going to have to go to I hate this term, but great power competition. But the bottom line is, changing nature of warfare. It's not risk aversion. It's not lack of initiative. Honestly, I think it comes back again to intellect. So it comes back to we're not nurturing, encouraging that sense of creativity and intellectual curiosity, critical thinking, all of the above. Easy enough for me to say that. What do I mean by that? Well, think about how we select officers, all right? Yeah, aside from a GPA and aside from, am I using the right terminology here, GCT? Do we still use that term?
Yeah, GT score, GT.
Yeah, so I think it was like a 120 GT for an officer, right?
Yeah. Which I had a waiver for, yeah.
Okay, well,
let you know
thank you. Yeah, let's not come out and I was just going to say, which is barely. Anyway, but those aren't tests of creativity or intellectual curiosity or intellect. Why don't we, where is our officer selection right at entry gateway? Now, don't get me wrong. I think we've got tremendous officers. I'm just saying that there are certain traits that we need to give greater encouragement too, right? So we can have dudes who are great leaders, but they are not yet adaptive. They're not adaptive, and it begins there. If you start, in entry point, and then, throughout. This is a talent management thing, but throughout an officer's career, you should give him plenty of opportunities to widen his horizon, or as General Van Riper used to say, cast your net wide, and go. For professional military education, there is a very limited field, right, of places that you can go. Whereas now, Army, Air Force, I know the Marine Corps is doing PhD programs now too, but there should be many more of those. Fellowships with Department of State, with USAID. And non-government organizations. Why not? Get our guys out there. That is what I'm talking about, education, right? Outside the institution, so that they can be an outsider. That's part of it, right? I think that our talent management could use some reworking. I think that we need to go to a 360 method of performance evaluation, because all of us who've been in the Marine Corps know that peers and subordinates, by and large, are very fair judges of performance and reputation. And all of us know that if you are determined to get ahead, you can fool your superiors. You can deliver, right? But things suffer, like your unit suffers. Those around you suffer. Your subordinates suffer. Okay, I'm not just talking about toxic leadership, but I'm talking, too, about the guy who is perhaps not particularly talented. He's not a toxic leader, but he's not the smartest tool in the shed. Right. All right. My point is we only need the smartest tools in the shed. That's who we need in this environment. No. We can't be promoting dudes who aren't among the smartest guys.
He's not dangerous. He's just not inspiring.
He's not inspiring, exactly. But he gets ahead because he delivers, right? But his peers spawn the dude's like average. Well, so that's why I think we need to go to 360 evaluation. All right. This is just you're asking me, hey, what do we need to do, rather than me just talk vaguely about, we need more of this and that. I'm just giving you one example.
Sure.
I think that's going to be a huge example. Now, the counter-argument is, now you're going to get officers who pander to their subordinates. And I would say most Marines do not want an officer who panders to him. They want a dude who knows his stuff. And bottom line is, they would rather he was an asshole and knew his... Can I say asshole?
Yeah.
That was not on your list of words.
You got it twice.
All right,
you got it twice now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
they would rather have... Wouldn't you rather have a boss who was an asshole but knew his stuff, knew his shit, right? Than a guy who is just trolling along trying to get to the next... And one of those guys who can never make a decision, you can never push and make a decision. Those guys are death to work for. But a lot of them get ahead because they are carefully waiting for that one or two things they know their boss wants, and they give him the ham sandwich that he has asked for, and they go on. So 360 evaluation is one. I think we need to. I think we really do need to figure out a way to measure and continuously challenge intellect and assess intellect. And the guys who, it's okay to tell an officer, hey, dude, you're fine as a major, but you're not smart enough to make lieutenant colonel, right? Seriously, because that's what we need, are really smart guys. I mean, again, you want to know why I'm saying this? Because as we're talking about preparing for not just conflict, but competition, right, below the level of armed conflict, shaping, strategic reconnaissance shaping, and then all the way through the sort of small unit action that we're talking about in Indo-PACOM. We need guys who are intellectually acute, right?
And we shouldn't allow these guys to promote themselves out of work, too. For example, if you've got a really awesome company commander who's really pushing the limits and is really developing his Marines and is really honing his craft, but you're like, hey, man, your 18 months are done. Go be an OPSO, go be an XO, or go to school, but you're out of here. And the guy says, I love being a company commander. Can I just be a company commander for a little bit longer? Nope. We got to get more guys coming in.
Every 2 to 3 years, you empty the bathtub.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. So there's another aspect of talent management. That is the way that we do unit manning, organizational manning. And I know, listen, I know it's easy for me to say this. I know there are probably guys who work at Manpower right now going, geez, Milburn, shut the hell up. You have no idea what you're talking about. But my point is that the way we do things right now it makes no sense. And especially now when I talk, there's no point being a learning adaptive organization if everyone who learns and adapts is gone in a few months. And so that's why we have this kind of exercise cycle of people coming in, they learn hard lessons, and then they go their ways, and all those lessons dissipate. Right?
Unless you have a good turnover binder.
Yeah, but I mean, so you're right. We've got to figure out a way to build and sustain institutional proficiency and knowledge, a little more longevity in billets, and prevent that turbulence. Because with that turbulence, again, it's just like, it's pulling the plug, right?
Yeah.
And starting again.
Yeah.
And so I think all of these things are interrelated. Don't get me wrong, I mean, I made my proviso up front. I mean, of course, I'm absolutely green pro Marine Corps. These are comments, so I think, we've got to learn to adapt.
And we need to ask the question, and I think it's important, and I think it leads into exactly our main theme for this series is that let's ask the question and let's get ahead of the scuttlebutt and let's start speaking truth to some of these things that Marines are talking about. And one of them obviously is, are we still an amphibious force? And from your outsider
is that a question?
That's the question. From your outsider perspective, and especially with you being
why do we care if we're an amphibious force? Because
that's an even better question.
You see, I'm much better at asking good questions. So,
I'll say this: Colonel Woodbridge, I think, put it very well. Is that, and again, we didn't necessarily have an answer, but this isn't necessarily a podcast for answers. But we need to be expeditionary. Talking about culture, we 100%. Need to facilitate and enable.
We need to be adaptive.
All those things.
Adaptive, expeditionary, not necessarily amphibious.
But does it? Yeah, is amphibious critical to that piece?
No, 100% not.
Okay.
All right.
Says the guy who lives in 29 Palms.
No, so we, in a sense, we've been amphibious in and out of our history, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our most totemic, am I saying that word right? Roots and amphibiosity, of course, date from.
That's our next series, by the way. Totemic.
Ellis, and the Second World War, right? But that story was not about amphibiosity. That story was about adaptation and eccentricity, and that's why it's such a wonderful story. By the way, Ellis, he I can't remember who told me this story, but he had a painting over there in the old MCU building, right? And of course, Ellis was an alcoholic. I hope none of his descendants are listening to this and will sue me, but he was, but he was. Obviously, he changed the course of history. It doesn't matter if he was alcoholic.
Yeah.
He was amphibious, right? But my point was, he was adaptive. He understood what needed to be done, and the Marine Corps adapted, right? And so instead of falling in love with this being amphibious, we should again go back to being adaptive, and it's all important now. It just so happens that we probably need to be littoral.
Yeah.
It's just because of the nature of changing demographic nature of the conflict that we're facing. But that should never be central to our identity.
Well, for someone who has commanded at the highest levels of strategic and operational and tactical, we talk about specialized operators. Does part of being the joint force then, does our amphibiosity, is that the tool that we bring to the joint kit, or is it again come back to our expeditionary culture is the thing that differentiates us?
It 100% not amphibiosity. It comes back to expeditionary culture, but we've got to be careful. We've got to make sure we've got to give life to this, if that's what we're saying. All right. Again, and you're going to be tired of, certainly if you're not already tired of me saying adaptive, that has to be core to our culture. And us being more adaptive, more expeditionary than our counterparts or other services. That's our identity. That's our claim to sustained longevity.
Trait.
Yeah.
So is it more of like a tool in our toolkit rather than like something we give ourselves like a face tattoo for? Amphibiosity.
Adaptivity. Oh yeah, that's what you're saying.
But I'm not even sure what amphibiosity means anymore, because we're not. amphibious assault is obsolete. Absolutely, amphibious assault as we know it.
Well, there's still 5 billion people living within 30 miles of the coast on this planet.
Yeah, but we don't.
Like,
But amphibious, I mean, now operating the littorals is not.
Right.
Is not
but forceful
obsolete.
entry
But
from the sea against a contested
theater level entry from ships to the shore is obsolete.
Now, just to play counterpoint, and again, just to further spur the discussion, we start talking doctrine. Now, obviously, when you were mentioning initiative, the box with which in we accept initiative, and we sometimes call it adaptation, still falls within the box of doctrine. MCDP 1. And I'm just going to read this, sorry. Says operating forces must be organized to provide forward deployed or rapidly deployable forces of conducting expeditionary operations in any environment. This means that in addition to maintaining their unique amphibious capability, the operating forces must maintain the capability to deploy by whatever means is appropriate to the situation. So when we read that last bit there seems like a bit of a caveat, or it gives you that loophole. As someone who operated in commanded at the joint level with special operators doing special missions, are we still in this business?
Well, I think we're getting wrapped around the axle about how we get to the fight, right? I think it's more important what we do when we get there.
Okay.
So, if it so happens that launching from the sea is the best way to get to the fight, of course we need to. If that's the most appropriate way, of course we should sustain that capability. But expeditionary means getting to the fight by any means, right? And it's actually, that part of it is. We really need to think through what that means, because how are we going to get to the fight when the theater is already hostile to entry? I didn't word that very well, but if you're dealing with an adversary who is denied large areas of that theater, how now do we? Yeah,
when the weapons engagement zone reaches
the world.
Reaches all the way to San Diego.
So maybe we're looking at some different means of infiltration. And there's really no limits on this. Let me give you a couple of examples. All right, so I think we have to forget about. I think that the line between what we call Tier 2 special operations. Let's take MarSOC. All right. The line between the sort of things that MarSOC does and what conventional Marine Corps does, that line has to become blurred, all right, in this environment. Yeah. Because we're all dealing with the same environment. The difficulty of getting in there, we're going to have to deal with kind of more of a small unit approach, infiltration.
It's a raider mindset.
Yeah. And everything, degraded communications, the ability to deploy sensors, long-range precision fires down at the squad level. All these now we think of being special operations capabilities, but no, we have to take these on board, and it's not far-fetched. We don't need a ton of extra equipment. We just need, wait for it, to be more adaptive. All right, we've got the means to do this now. Yeah, we've got. Yeah, I mean, we are short. Yes, we are short. For instance, ISR platforms. But that is not the reason why we are not good at employing sensors. The reason why we're not good at employing sensors is we have not adapted to that mindset of this is the fight now. It is. It's. I mentioned earlier the old paradigm about closing with. This is going to be blasphemy for the infantry guys, but closing with and destroying the enemy by fire and maneuver is no longer grunts piling out of an Amtrak and assaulting the trench line after it has been prepped by mortars and artillery. Right. That is not it. Closing with the enemy is closing the kill chain. Yeah. Which may be 20, 30 kilometers away. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Using sensors and using hopefully organic precision guided weapons at the squad level. Yeah. That's kind of that is when I say that, I remember General Van Ripe used to say, "Well, this isn't the way he talked, by the way, but he used to say either the nature of war has not changed, but the character has." And anyway, we're at that point again. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's a fundamental change in how we think about how we do business.
Yeah. I
And-
think it's a full paradigm shift, right? I mean, based off of what you're saying is that even things like shaping operations, we need to get out of this mindset that those are going to last X number of days or X number of hours. It could be the majority of your operation is just shaping it so that when you do penetrate, it's quick and you're in and out, right?
Or you could spend your whole career shaping.
Yeah.
In Indo-PACOM. All right. What does shaping involve? Shaping involves a whole host of things, and the special operations community, they hide behind this phrase, not hide, but they use this phrase, overused phrase, operational preparation of the environment, right? That is shaping. It's reconnaissance, it's counter-reconnaissance, which, we are struggling with right now, both at the tactical level. It is building source networks, human networks, okay? That should be these are conventional mindset things. It is training proxy forces, partner forces. These are all things, and access, gaining access, ensuring that we have access, so when the balloon goes up, we're not having problems getting back in somewhere.
Yeah.
These are critical to our success going ahead, but we don't focus enough on that. We think always right or bang.
Yeah.
As I said, that now our main contribution to the joint force now on the next decade, 2 decades may be shaping. It may be reconnaissance, counter-reconnaissance. Mm-hmm. And it may have nothing to do with storming across the beach.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to definitely touch on something that you said, because I think it's a great lead-in to your article that is hitting the Marine Corps Gazette. But is the idea of the proxy force being part of shaping operations. I think that is a critical mindset or a change in mindset that we need to start picking up, because what we did for 20 years, that was in a lot of places, that was the main effort.
Yeah.
That wasn't phase one stuff. And so getting out of this idea that I have to deploy large company battalion task forces to do these things, I think is going to be a huge shift. But before I do that, though, I want to touch on something that you just said about access. And I know for, greasy Amtrackers such as myself, when I hear someone say, well, we need to maintain and ensure access, I go, Amtrak's, Amphibiosity, ding, ding.
Oh, hold on. I'm just closing the loop now. That's right. You're a tracker.
Yeah,
So what I've been
sense now,
saying,
right?
Yeah, what I've been saying is it's the equivalent of criticizing transubstantiation to a Catholic, right?
I've had to hold back tears
All right.
for quite a while now.
Okay.
So I'm glad I was able to get that off my chest.
It's all right. You're retired now.
But yeah, so when people hear, well, we need to maintain access, the amphibiosity diehards are going to say, well, that's why we need to that's why it's important that we stay amphibious.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's taking the view though that access means forcible access right at bang, right?
Yeah,
it means instead of doing all the prep work beforehand, and use of proxy forces is one way of doing it.
Yeah, good point.
Because you are getting others to do your work for you, and to assist your units to get in. As I said, I mean it's not going to be. When we think of forcible entry, it's probably not going to be mass amphibious assaults or parachute drops anymore. It's probably going to be small, relatively small units.
Yeah.
And unmanned vehicles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Use of massive use of unmanned vehicles,
Automation.
loitering munitions. To get in and disable the enemy's critical nodes, and then opening the way for you to go in. So, all of this you might call shaping, call it what you will, but those now become the decisive actions.
Nice. Okay, very good. Well, then on that note, then access, proxy forces. You wrote an article for the Gazette titled "MarSOC leads the SOF counter ISIS campaign in Iraq. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Certainly. Hey, up front, Woody did promise me that you guys paid $50 a word. I just want to verify that is.
Too many decimal points go.
Okay.
Yeah, about 4 to the left. So I think we're about
That's
half a cent a word.
That's better than my last article. Woody charged me to get it published.
Where are you coming up with that half a cent? Like,
Because you move the decimal places to the left.
I get that. I just don't know.
He's worried, Nick's worried that I'm going to still ask for a paycheck
Yeah.
at the end of this article.
Actually, I'm not worried about it.
So what do you think it was then? Obviously, if I'm not mistaken, you were the first Marine to command CJ Sodif.
Yeah, I've got to be careful about this because there was Sodif, I forget the name, in Africa. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Can't
It was
remember.
an extremely high-profile campaign. I mean,
Yeah, it's the first time. Let me put it this way: it is the first time in a high-profile campaign, like a real task, a Colonel 06 level special operations task force in conflict.
yeah. I mean,
so-
this was the enemy of the era. And so, what do you think it was though that had about MarSOC that you requested an additional MarSOC task force and not a Army SF team or a SEAL team?
Hey, yeah, at that stage I was desperate enough. I would have taken, I'll get to your question, Vic, and 100% on target here. But let me say up front. So my first concern was just getting another headquarters in there. Just to backtrack for a moment, for the sake of the listeners, what Vic's talking about is when we rolled into, when I say we, the MarSOC-led Sieges Sodif rolled into Iraq in 2016. One of the first things I did was advocate for a second Special Operations Task Force as a subordinate unit, because it was a question of span of control, right? Iraq's a big place, but it wasn't just about that. It was about the nature of the fight. It was about the nature of our partners. Everything militated to have a second headquarters beneath me. Number one. So I would have taken, honestly, I would have taken a Boy Scout troop at that stage. But I specifically wanted a MarSOC unit. Here's why. All right. Honestly, what I think separates MarSOC from other soft components. One is full. Of course, they're Marines, okay? And that's not just being blasé. We have an advantage in that we, even Army SF brings guys in from a pretty wide pool from across conventional Army, right? But we, when I say we, I'm sorry, I mean MarSOC, we bring guys in who have already proven themselves in the Marine Corps. So they already have that kind of level of maturity. They're sergeants or they're junior captains. So that that's thing one. We'd go. The process of assessment selection is very fair, but it's really good. So when I talk about we should be doing the same thing for officers, I'm not just shooting from the hip. We do it for Marines coming into MarSOC. We test for emotional intelligence. We don't call it that necessarily. Intellectual curiosity, creativity, all these things come out in the tests that they're given, either practical tests or, So we get a really good crop of guys, all right? The other thing is just because of some of the missionary work done by a number of leaders within MarSOC from the birth of the organization, we have full integration of what in the soft community are known as enablers, right? These are the guys who have not gone through the same assessment and selection as operators, although I hate that term, but nevertheless, you need them. The intel guys, the dog handlers, EOD, the logistics guys, you name it, all right? But the way that MarSOC does that and integrates them down to team level, it means that team really is, I'm trying to think of the right word here without sounding just horribly cliche. It is a team. All right, so you will get situations in which the operators are supporting the intel dudes because they understand that is the mission in that particular case. That type of integration we take for granted in MarSOC, But when you go to the other SOF communities, they are very jealous of us. The fact that we have that as much as could be possible, our guys at team level are interchangeable. They all have specific skill sets, but as far as that sense of being part of a single entity, that unit, that is fully ingrained. Okay, the other piece is, because we have these capabilities, we have the ability to find, fix, finish, to close the kill chain, to do high-end intelligence collection, analysis, dissemination at the lowest level, at team level, all right? And then if you're working with a partner nation force, you have the ability to find, fix, finish at company level, which is significant. A MarSOC company has a greater intelligence capability than a conventional Marine regiment. Right?
That's amazing.
Now I think we're shifting. We need to shift in that way to make the conventional forces, as we're looking, for instance, at the MLR at 3rd Marine, that is kind of, the model we need to be looking towards. We're not going to turn. I'm not trying to turn conventional Marine Corps into MarSOC. I'm saying, though, that there are lessons that MarSOC has learned that now we need to transfer across the organization.
We shouldn't ignore it just because it's those guys over there.
Yeah, and the same thing with one of the slightly frustrating things now is as we look at the Indo-PACOM piece and we look at the shaping piece and the left of bank stuff, there is great opportunity for conventional Marine Corps and MarSOC to work together. Brother Marines working together, same problem set, but we need to blur those lines more.
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, hey, those guys are, they fall under SOCOM or they fall under SOCPAC and we fall under MAR4PAC. Those days are gone. We need to integrate fully.
Well, yeah, ACMAC at our luncheon talked about Standin Force.
You have lunch with the ACMAC?
I was serving. I was serving.
Okay, very neat way to.
He's in here all the time.
I was the iced tea. I was the iced tea guy, and he didn't ask. So I was just one in the back, just listening. But he had talked about stand-in forces.
Yeah.
And when you hear that, you think Raiders, or you think SOF, right? But we're talking at the conventional force level.
Yeah. But how do you get them in there?
Right.
How do you get them in there to stand in and not just lie down?
Right.
And that's that's
stand in, not stand around.
And so again, that gets back to shaping. I think it gets back to the reconnaissance, counter reconnaissance fight that we need to be better at from the tactical to the strategic level. And I know you keep hearing me come back to 29 Palms and MWX, but that is our laboratory right now. You think about in the 30s, the places they used to practice, Puerto Rico. I know you're going to get listeners who are historians who are going to say, no, it wasn't Puerto Rico. But, the various places they used to practice, they used to experiment with the Higgins boat and everything else, right? Well, 29 Palms kind of is that place for us now, with multi-domain operations. It's perhaps not getting the attention it deserves being 29 Palms, but that is it. Yeah. And that's where we need to really to start experimenting. We are experimenting with these concepts.
Yeah.
How to get better at reconnaissance, counter-reconnaissance. What does counter-reconnaissance mean? It doesn't mean just looking at OP Crampton and saying, hey, can you see any dudes up there? Hey, shall I call in artillery mission? It means understanding understanding how to disable the enemy's ability to sense, right? Mm-hmm. And that might mean in the electromagnetic spectrum. It might mean neutralizing them in other ways. It might be in the information environment. There's a multitude of ways, but having the ability, see what I'm saying about thinking creatively down at squad level.
Yeah, especially that information thing, because everybody's got smartphones and everything.
That's
even
right.
Overseas, so how do you get around that?
How do we get? How do we get? How do we get inside the commander's head? And alter his decision calculus. How do we create ambiguity? All right, it's not just a question, are you going to come up with a deception plan? There's 5 parts to a deception plan. No, it's how do you constantly, as a habit of thought in action, create ambiguity for the enemy, right? I know we spout about that all the time, but we typically don't integrate that well. How do we, when I talk about, and these are just examples of the way we should be thinking. So down at squad level, all right, I would argue this. Again, that's just sake of argument. I would argue that we are at a kind of a turning point in how we conduct, how we fight, similar to maybe 100 years ago, or at least the environment has changed. So 100 years ago, through developments of the preceding decades, machine gun, artillery, accuracy of artillery, but mostly the machine gun, right? The defense became paramount. And people didn't. It took a while. It took the First World War for people to realize how much stronger now the defensive position was than it used to be. And it took hundreds of thousands of lives. And then it didn't necessarily take new technological advances, although the tank was developed, but the tank was improperly used to begin with. My point was, it took mindset, it took adaptability, and for better or for worse, it was the Germans who led that with 2017 when they started experimenting with stormtroop tactics. But I would argue we're at the same position right now, okay, with development of precision, long-distance precision-guided weapons, the development of blue-collar ISR, right? So all of our adversaries are going to have drones, and they're going to be able to sense us from way out. They're going to be able to hit us and kill us from way out. That has changed again. That has put strength back in the position of the defense. That doesn't mean all is lost. We've got to think of new gadgets. It just means we've got to adapt our tactics accordingly to close that distance. It's no longer closing the last 200, 300 meters. It's closing the last 30 kilometers, right? Or even longer. If you're talking operationally, it's talking closing the last 1,500 kilometers, right? But that's the mindset we've got to, and we last thing, and I'll shut up. We need to learn from. We need to forget our hubris and start looking what is happening in the world right now in places like I'm going to butcher my pronunciation, Nagorno-Karabakh, 44-day war. The Azeris using Turkish and Israeli supplied drones and loitering munitions, just carving their way, bringing down a fairly sophisticated IAD system. The Armenians did have a pretty up-to-date IAD system. They brought it down. They destroyed key nodes, and then they just destroyed the Armenian armored columns, right? Using blue-collar ISR from a distance. In Armenian infantry, there were very few infantry-on-infantry engagements during that war. Why aren't we learning from that? Yeah. The Turks did the same thing. I hate to keep bringing up the Turks, but they are learning. They did the same thing supporting Haftar in Libya. No, not supporting. Opposing Haftar. So 2018, 2019. Notice how I hedge my bets on dates here. Recently, so General Haftar attacked Tripoli from the east. He was a renegade general, Libyan. There were two rival Libyan governments. General Haftar represented, kind of, for want of a better word, the rebel government supported by Russia, Egypt, UAE, and paradoxically France for some curious reason, right? And then you've got the Government of National Accord in Tripoli, supported by the good guys, right? I always say plus Turkey. Did I say that? No. Anyway, but the Turks supported what was widely accepted as being the legitimate government. General Haftar launches his forces on Tripoli. He is the clear favorite, right? His militias are they're pretty formidable by the standard of Libyan militias. He's honed them well over the years, trained them. They're well equipped. They've got the Wagner group in full support. It looks like Tripoli's going to fall. The GNA forces, militia, turned them around. Inflicted heavy casualties using what? Drones. Just using drones and loitering munitions supplied by the Turks, right? Basic, not so. Where I'm heading on this is we are so wedded to. We need Gucci gear. We need high-end platforms. We are really highly sophisticated, but that is no longer that's not what we should be looking at. And this ties into the use of proxy forces. That was the Turks working with proxy forces, delivering a significant defeat, not just some penny anti-rival militia, but an army backed by Russian.
Yeah, some heavy hitters.
Yeah, a Russian organization with close ties to the Kremlin, and with sophisticated weaponry. Why aren't we learning from that? Okay.
Well, but you did. one of the things that you mentioned in your article was how you were able to use cyber space as maneuver space by reaching out to dissenters of ISIS in Mosul via the internet. How did that? What was the genesis of that?
So all the good ideas in the Siege of Sotif came from bottom up, and I think that kind of gets back to the fact that you need to be a creative thinker, but a lot of the times you just need to recognize and applaud creative thinking from below. And so, one thing that the counter-ISIS campaign. The counter-ISIS campaign was a success on many levels. Okay, low number of casualties, successful use of proxy forces, adaptation, but of course the fight is not over because the conditions that fueled ISIS continue. But my point is that this was our first introduction to many new aspects of modern warfare, and one was the prominent role that the internet plays. Right, not just in the mostly in the information space. There's a reason why the Islamic State shut down internet and tried to control the internet in its occupied territories because they realized what a powerful tool it was. And then from our part, we use the internet for a variety of reasons. And I'll keep on the right side of classified here, but we used it we used it, I would say, almost more than a more traditional collection means. For intelligence, we got a lot of our battle damage assessment, our sense of morale of the opposition, Islamic State, you name it. We were getting it from social media exploitation using Iraqis a lot of times because they could. But to your point too, so there's the collection part. Then there's the influence part, right? And so, the local population, but then the adversary too. Local population, we had, what we realized was, as we rolled in to Iraq, the siege of Sotif deployed there, and bear in mind that there was a conventional U.S. force there who did not have the same freedom of movement that we did, but nevertheless they were there. It was, at the time, 101st Airborne. And we were working by, with, and through Iraqi forces. One thing we realized was that we had to reassess what we were going to do there. So we had done problem framing beforehand. We figured if we would go after the Islamic State army, for want of a better word, 20, 30,000 fighters, and just kill them, right? Because we had primacy. We had the weapons, we had air. But because the idea behind the Islamic State was so strong, Muslims were still flocking to disaffected, youth were flocking to the black flag from all over the world, most notably Europe, North Africa, coming through Turkey, Syria. So it didn't matter how fast we killed them, he was able to replenish his recruits faster than we could do so. So we had to reconfigure. And so, going back to Doctrine, I'm afraid, his center of gravity was Mosul, right? So the purpose of Special Operations Forces should always seek to have strategic effect. We had to support the operational fight, our partners in the operational fight in the lower Euphrates Valley. We had to help defend Baghdad, but at the same time, we had to make him feel the pain at home, right? Go after his center of gravity. And the way to do that was partly by working with the population within Mosul to encourage them into acts of defiance against the Islamic State from within the city. Because the Islamic State, the Mosul had achieved almost mystical symbolism. You remember, this was the place where Baghdadi had declared, the caliphate in June of from the Al Nouri Mosque in June of 2014. So we had to make the Islamic State feel the pinch there. And there's another thing about this too. Baghdadi had implicitly set up the Islamic State as being, well, not implicitly, it was a proto-state. The Islamic State, the name itself says it, right? So along with the state comes obligations to the local population. However tyrannical you are, you have to provide for the local population. Yeah,
Taliban's running into that issue now.
And so the Islamic State was trying to do that, and they were doing it pretty well. They're running electricity. They're issuing traffic tickets, for Christ's sake.
No way.
Yeah, in between drowning people in cages and crucifying people and throwing people off rooftops. But they were doing enough. They were being brutal enough that there was, of course, that was not enough. And then, as their ability to deliver services went down and their brutality went up, we saw an opportunity. And that was encouraging local population to start with small acts of defiance, smashing media kiosks, that was the Islamic State's way of operating the information environment, set up these information kiosks, and that's how the local population got their news of the world. But it was a little like Fox News. It wasn't really real news, right? So, so little things like destroying that graffiti, which is like nothing,
Yeah.
But that would send the Islamic State dudes apeshit. The fact that it would really worry them that something was happening within the city.
Defined.
Yeah. So how do you do that? How do you reach out to the local population? Cell phone towers were down, and a lot of it was on the internet. A lot of it was by FaceTime or Skype. Americans or Iraqis talking to the locals within the city and building relationships and encouraging them to do these things, which is kind of, I think, interesting. Very interesting.
It's such a interesting juxtaposition as you've got, and what you see in the article, you got pictures of the Peshmerga forces. It's really, on appearances, seems to just be a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
But then you also have, you're working extensively within the cyber domain as well. And so I think, to your point about intellectual curiosity and adaptation, it's like you've got to really be prepared to do just about all the things. And I know, when I was coming up as a lieutenant, we talked about a 3-block war. Then it turned into a 4-block war as we realized that people were digging tunnels. Now you've got a 5th block, a 6th block.
Yeah, and again, this is kind of blasphemy. So the 3-block thing analogy doesn't work for me anymore. We just need to go back and be frickin' adaptive. And here's an example to, I think to what you're talking about. And this works whether we're working with our own forces or proxy forces. Okay, we've got to figure out, as I mentioned, how to do long distance sensing down at squad level.
Yeah.
And how to deliver fires at squad level. But at the same time, we need to think and operate cross domain. What does that mean? That means in the information space. That means on the internet. That means signals intelligence. It means thinking of the electromagnetic spectrum as a weapon, right? Jamming. Jamming is a form of suppression. All of these things we need to start employing as second nature down at down at squad level. But at the same time, we've got to hone and develop those skills that maybe we have lost or have atrophied along the way. Reconnaissance, basic patrolling, reconnaissance, because, again, those skills are just as important as they used to be. So you see what I'm saying? So it's a wide, I don't think, the block thing doesn't do it for me anymore. I just, you need guys who are emotionally intelligent and adaptive down at that level.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, sir, I really appreciate you so much. Or Andy, I used the S word again. I appreciate so much you being so generous with your time. I mean, I'm like tying you to the chair here as I'm continuing to prattle on, but I do want to ask one more thing about your article. You concluded your article with, and I'll quote you here, "The fundamentals that enable success in modern war are already rooted in our doctrinal publications." So what does that mean then for a need for directional shifts like Force Design 2030? And are we talking about the concept of things being already rooted in doctrinal publications with a paradigm shift like 2030? Are these operating on different spheres, or is it more like a Venn diagram where there's this gray area where the two have to overlap in order for us to be effective in the modern battlefield? So
here's what I meant by that. So in our doctrinal publications, we talk about things like mission type orders. We talk about in a subordinate initiative. We talk about friction. We talk about implicit communication. right? Did I already say implicit communication?
No, I think that's a
No,
new
okay. So implicit communication, all those things, even more important now in a environment of degraded communication, where we become targets. And again, all of those things enable us not to, follow our doctrine is worded deliberately wide, right?
Yeah, yeah. As we saw in MCDP1.
Yeah, it's wider. It's not like necessarily. It's not like a publication like the Air-Land Battle that says, "Hey, this is kind of the way you do war," right? It does say this is how you do war, but it's more a mindset. It's a conceptual thing, right? And so that's what I mean by that is ingrained in that is the fact that we have to adapt and we have to. We have to really operate like we say we operate, because that's the only way we can in this new environment. Does that answer your question?
It does, and so I guess I have one follow-up. Then, do you think then shifting the paradigm like Force Design 2030 does, is it facilitating that? Is it enabling that adaptation, or are we just sort of, is it another veneer and we're not really getting to the root of the problem?
No, I think you need an objective, you need a goal, right? The challenge then becomes making it alive, making it come alive for units, organizations, individuals who are rooted in the here and now, and are operating. Let's be honest. These are, how can we blame people for struggling with this when we have brought them up to operate a certain way? We're coming out of 2 decades of counterinsurgency. This is all new stuff. So we really have to focus on. We can take 2030, but we've got to lay down milestones and markers, enablers to enable us to get there from here. But the important thing that allows us to do that is the mindset. This isn't just me just spouting propaganda, and the mindset is rooted in our doctrine. We really need to take it on board. And the only way we can do that, honestly, is to reward behavior that pursues, that embodies that mindset, and discourage, I'm trying to avoid saying punish, discourage that behavior that does not. Until that happens, we're just going to continue to wallow.
At the lowest levels, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Yep.
Hey, guys, got anything?
Stuff comes up as it goes, and it just kind of gets answered as
we're
thinking about
that's
it.
the thing.
So.
I got all this stuff written down, and he was answering it as we were talking. Well, for all of our listeners, please go check out When the Tempest Gathers. Check out the Marine Corps Gazette. MarSOC leads the soft counter ISIS campaign in Iraq. And these are all extremely... the themes in here go well beyond memoir, and they go well beyond just an account of here I was, there we were. I think that there's a lot of lessons learned across the spectrum of the human experience. So, sir, thank you so much. Or Andy, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. This has been awesome.
Hey, fellas, it's been a great pleasure for me too.
All right, it's been great having you. This has not been. There's a big ad for MarSOC in every issue of each magazine. This is not related to that at all. So, let's throw that disclaimer out there.
I'll pick up my check on the way out.
So,
along with my check for the article.
Yeah, it's just the free copy of the magazine over there on the shelf.
In the bottle of water. We'll get you a bottle of water.
That's awesome.
So, that'll cover the. Was it half a cent a word you were promising them earlier?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So, all right.
Still pretty good. Half a cent a word. That's like $200.
Half a cent a word? No, I guess that won't cover it then.
Yeah.
You need to.
Yeah,
you need to put another decimal in there.
Work the math out.
All right. Thanks.
All right, fellas. Thanks for that.
Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. I am Nick Wilson. That is Major Vic Ruble, U.S. Marine Corps retired. We have also heard the voices of or contributions from William Treuting or Nancy Lichtman, editors of Gazette and Leatherneck magazines, respectively. Opinions expressed in Scuttlebutt are just that, opinions, and do not represent any official stance of the MCA.